Alright, what's going on, boys and girls? We're here with another video, and this one is by a user called Havoc. And he is asking a very simple question. Can you game on Linux in 2020? Well, here's my reaction to his question. I'm hoping it's not full of dumb, because I know it's been a while since I've done any of these videos, and a lot of it's because I dread digging through the bowels of YouTube at times to find the really bad ones. So I'm hoping this is a really, really good one. So let's just roll into what Havoc has to say and whether or not you can actually game on Linux 2020.
Alright, what is going on, guys? Today I'm going to be making a little bit of a different video, just because this is something that I've been working on for the past few days, and it's just kind of like a little project that I started just because, I have nothing else to do, because everyone's, inside and all that, so I thought might as well install Linux, because why not, as normal people do. But basically, I just wanted to see where the support for it is in 2020, because I remember seeing about a year ago that Steam was doing some stuff to try and get games running natively on Linux, or not natively, but trying to get Windows games to run better on Linux. And but I haven't really heard anything about it recently. So I thought might as well, because it is also something that I've wanted to switch to for a while. The only issue that I have right now is that VR, I think Valve, they have support for the Valve Index, but I'm not sure about HTC, and I know for a fact that Oculus does not support anything Linux. So that's kind of an issue for me right now, because that means I have to dual boot Windows and Linux just to be able to play VR. Once I figure out how to get it all set up, I will probably make a video on kind of a fix for that issue. Which is basically passing a GPU through a virtual machine and just running it through that. But that's not what this video is about. This video is about just gaming, normal flat screen gaming on Linux. So basically, once you download Linux, doesn't matter what distro you choose or anything.
So the first thing is he seems to be much more tech literate than a lot of these other people that I tend to react to. He seems to have a basic understanding of what's going on, at least in the Linux sphere, somewhat. Like him talking about VR support. HTC Vive and the Valve Index, I believe, are both mostly supported or fully supported on Linux. Oculus, good luck. You'll hear about some people getting it to work, but it's very hacky. It's not smooth. So yeah, VR, not gonna lie, is if you're a VR gamer, Linux is not the place to go for you, and that's totally okay. So let's see what homie is talking about, because he's talking a bit of distros now.
Anything like that. You basically want to go down to whatever your software store here is. So mine is Discover. I know Ubuntu has their own. Also, if anyone's wondering what distro I'm using, it's Kubuntu, which is obviously built off of Ubuntu, but it has the KDE Plasma 5 desktop. So that's how you get like all these transparent windows and everything like that. And it looks really cool. I know you can get this desktop environment on.
So the one thing I can already tell that I like is the fact that KDE Plasma 5, so props to that. The fact that you're using Kubuntu, totally cool with that too. I believe Kubuntu has more sane defaults, i.e. it's double click, not single click. Sorry, Rocco, at the end of it. And it has more of a dual tone theme, dark and light, whereas like generic Plasma, like on a fresh Arch install, has those bleeding, make your eyes bleed whites as the default, and I don't understand why. So the Kubuntu gives a nice balance, and you do have a lot of translucency and stuff, and that is totally available in Plasma. As far as Discover, it's gotten better, but you have my sympathies. Personally, for me, this is just when I still need the Muon package manager if I want a GUI based in like storefront. It says a lot about the tool being developed. I mean, I still use Synaptic when I use like straight Ubuntu because I can't just so many levels of no to the Ubuntu Software Center, GNOME software, call it whatever you want. So yeah, good so far.
Like Arch Linux and things like that, but this is just the easiest one for me to get personally. And I don't really have an issue with Ubuntu. I know some people do. So, I don't know, just read up on them, choose which one you want. Most things will have something similar to this.
And yes, you are totally correct. Use whatever works for you. Don't let anybody else try to flip you to something that, my way is the right way. No, your way is for you. Find your way. Good call.
And if not, I'm pretty sure if you go to the Steam website, they have installation instructions.
As far as the Steam website, yes, they do have, I believe they have deb and they have RPM for installs. I'm not 100% sure about other package formats. I know there is a flat pack for Steam, but that comes with caveats, mostly around Proton and a few other oddball things, but they all work just differently.
But this is just the simplest way. Basically, once you install it, go to whatever your store is and just type in Steam. So you'll see right here, Steam installer. That's normally the one that comes up. Install that, wait for it to finish, and while that's going, I don't think...
So do note that not all package managers are going to have the Steam installer. Sometimes if you're specifically on Ubuntu or Debian or any of RPM based distros, it's usually better to actually download from the Steam website, which is ironic given the fact that how much Linux users say, hey, we don't have to do what Windows users do. Ironic at times. Not saying that's always the solution. Usually the repos are fine. Sometimes the repo one is older or doesn't play nice. It gets a little weird sometimes. Not saying it's always a thing, but I've had issues where like this, you download the Steam installer from the Ubuntu repos, and for some reason that one won't work, but give you issues. You'll try to connect and you'll constantly get like the currently offline, cannot connect. Go and download the one from the Steam website and the deb from Steam and works fine. So sometimes it's a catch-22 sometimes, but that's no different than a piece of Windows software that can have similar issues.
Lutris is actually on here. Yeah, no, it isn't. So the next thing that you want to get is Lutris. And let's just search Lutris. You'll see this, lutris.net. You press download, there will be instructions for pretty much every distro. So just kind of follow whichever one goes with what you chose. And yeah, so after that's all done.
So can I make a recommendation to Canonical company in charge of Ubuntu? We like to talk about making things easier for new users, etc. This garbage right here, where my mouse is highlighting, the sudo app repository add crap via the terminal, is not end user friendly. And before any CLI junkies tell me, oh, it's just copy and paste, what do we always tell users not to do from the internet? Mr. Security, well, Linux is more secure stuff. Don't copy and paste commands into the terminal from the internet. I would recommend that Canonical pull in Lutris. Personally, I'd recommend Pop! OS because Lutris is already in the repo. That's just my take. I mean, I'm using Arch mostly these days as far as what I generically use, but I still have Ubuntu machines. And really, It's just it's more of a convenience thing. Less steps to get the system up and running. Yeah, but that's more of a gripe at Canonical, not the video.
By the time you get this, Steam should probably be done installing. Just open it up, log into it just like you would on Windows, and you'll be taken to the store page by default. But if you go over to your library, you'll probably see that most of your games either aren't there or they're grayed out. So the way you fix that is you go up into your settings, and you're going to want to go down to the Steam Play tab. Right here, you'll see it'll automatically install compatibility tools. You're going to want to check this and then check this under here. The top one is just for supporting Steam Play, which I know this isn't the correct term, but this is probably the best way to just describe it to people who have never heard of it before. It basically emulates Windows. I know it technically doesn't. It's just the easiest way to explain it. It allows for Windows games to run natively inside of Linux without like a virtual machine.
You are not wrong. Before people lambast you for using the wrong terminology, Wine is not an emulator. It's a compatibility layer. It takes Windows DLL calls and transfers them to Linux compatible call. That's why it's called. That's why they are so adamant that it's a compatibility layer. Short version, I don't care. It makes Windows games run on Linux. End of the day. So I'm going to let you keep going before I say anything else on this.
So, this is for games that Valve has gone through and said 100% they work, no issues. Down here, this is for if you want to experiment with some other games that Valve might not have said like work 100%. But most of these games, they do end up working. I'd say probably about 80% of games on Steam will probably work either with a native Linux version or with Proton here. So you see you have all these Proton versions that are right here. You probably won't have the GE one. That's something that I installed later on, so you'd have all of these. And you might even have newer ones depending on when you're watching this video. But right now, 507 is the latest one that just comes with the Steam install. So after that's done, just press OK. And you should see some of your games come. I do not know why that just opened, but you should see that some of your games come up in your library here. You should have all of them. So a really good place to check if whatever game you want to play is compatible is if you open up Chrome or whatever browser you want to use, and you go to Proton DB. So if you open this up, it'll tell you, these are the ratings for the 10 most popular games. Normally, green means that it's native, so these games will just run without even needing to turn on Steam Play, which you just did back there. Red, they don't work at all. Most Battle Royale games do not work, so if you're a fan of that genre, Linux is probably not for you, unless you have an extra GPU and you want to go into GPU pass-through. Gold.
So let's talk about why like PUBG and similar games, Fortnite, etc., don't work, or AK, the red portion on this is called borked. They're borked because of easy anti-cheat or battle eye or anti-cheat programs. Not because Linux isn't capable of running the actual application, it's a third-party tool problem, because a lot of these are not developed on Linux or with Linux in mind, so those interpretation calls get a little wonky when they're trying to be interpreted, and those Linux calls to DLLs, etc. Then you have the server that's trying to authenticate and a bunch of the other stuff for the anti-cheat. It's a pain, and really at the end of the day, that's not so much a Linux thing. We develop shitty software, and that's kind of my take. Having been a Windows gamer for a long time and played a bunch of multiplayer games, I'm looking at you, PlanetSide 2, PlanetSide 1, Easy Anti-Cheat, Battle Eye, all those anti-cheat programs, they really don't work. Just saying.
These ones work most of the time, but it might have some issues. Bronze here, they're basically not working. Like, you can get them to work, but they're not very playable. So yeah, and then you have like Platinum, which are games that pretty much should be supported natively by Steam, but they aren't for whatever reason. So all these games down here, these work perfectly with little or no issues, but Steam just hasn't added them to the list of supported games yet. So
what I would recommend is that little icon that's up here that says, sign in with Steam. I'd recommend logging into Proton DB, and then once you log in, it'll load your your Steam library, and then what you can do is you'll go to your library, and what you can do is sort your library by rating. So Platinum, like he said, generically should just work, and it will go through your entire library. Like, I have like 700 games on Steam, so it takes me a while to go through my list, but that rating has helped me play games that I wouldn't have played otherwise, because Platinum and Gold generically are the ones you don't really have to mess with. Silver and Bronze, you tend to have to mess with stuff. You have to add, launch options and stuff, and have certain versions of, wine tricks and Proton tricks, just a bunch of dumb crap that most end users aren't gonna have to deal with the headache to use or do. So, that is the thing. But that's just my recommendation.
You're going to want to look through this if you're wondering about if a game is going to work. So if you're planning on switching to Linux, you might want to give this website a check before you install it, just to make sure your favorite game works on it. Like, for example, I know a lot of people like Siege, but it just does not work at all because of BattleEye, which I heard that apparently Valve is working with BattleEye to try to get it working on Steam Play games, but I haven't heard much about that in the past 8 months, so I'm not sure if that's actually happening. But anyway, once that's all done, just going back to here, you can just kind of install and launch whatever games you want if they're supported. If it shows it in Proton DB and it says that it works, you can just install it and play it, and it's pretty simple. Now, I'm not going to get really into tweaking games and trying to get them to work when they don't 100% work. If they don't work out of the box, there are ways to get some of them to work. But I'm not really going to get into that. So now I'm going to get into Lutris, which is basically just a launcher for Steam games, Linux games that are just non-Steam. You can get browser games. You can also get a ton of emulators on here too. So if I go to runners, you can see most big emulators are on here, like Dolphin and MAME and things like that. So if you like a ton of retro games, this is definitely something nice to have. Which also, emulation is really good on Linux. I actually get much better frame rates with Dolphin, for example, using Linux compared to Windows. I'm not 100% sure if that's going to be the same for everyone, but at least for me, I've had much better frame rates running it. So if mainly all you play is emulators, you might want to look into getting Linux, because most of them are supported 100% on Linux. So I don't know.
Might I make the recommendation of RetroArch? There's a reason it's being made. That's all I'm going to say. Anyway.
Just check it out, I guess. So through here you can add games. If you download something from online and it's an EXE, so for example, if it's an indie game off of GameJolt or something, and you want to try to run it on here, you would press the plus, add game, choose the name for it, and then for the runner, if it's a Windows game, you would probably want to go down to Wine, runs Windows games. This is basically Proton, but Proton is Valve's version of Wine. So just choose that, go into game options, just browse, choose the executable, whatever game, and then in runner, you can choose the version. So I think if you have Steam installed, it'll automatically give you all of the Proton versions here, and then you should have all the Lutris versions. So you don't actually have to install Wine, as far as I know. I didn't do it, but yeah, something I downloaded might have had it installed already, just kind of like how Steam has Proton. But for the most part, you're going to want to use Proton. That's what I use for most of my games, and they run pretty great. But if you have issues with one of these, you can always switch over to, one of these Lutris ones, GE Protonified, stuff like that. And then you can also like mess around with these settings and see which one gives you the best frame rates. Well, this is just a really nice thing to have because it puts all of your games into a nice grid here, so you can see all of them. It's kind of like GOG, what they've been doing recently, but I don't think that actually is 100% supported on Linux yet. So other than that, that's basically about it. There really isn't that much more to go over. Like I said, VR support, a lot of games.
So, just a few things on the Lutris aspect, and these are not nitpicks, but you'll see EA Origin, Epic Game Store, in his launcher for apps. That installs the actual launching app, which then entail generically, not always, allows you to play some games from those services. Personally for me, I have Uplay because I like certain games, and unfortunately Ubisoft games require Uplay on PC, personal computer, guys. I don't mean just Windows, get over it. And it's annoying. But for me, what that does is there's a search function. If you have a game you want to add, it will search the entire Lutris website and pull down an installer for the game you're looking to install, and you just tell it to install. That's it. So there's a built-in search functionality to Lutris for games you're looking to install, which is a great feature. And just one he didn't highlight.
Do work on it. I'm actually not sure about Boneworks. I want to check that on ProtonDB because I actually am pretty curious about that. Oh, okay. Apparently Boneworks works. That's actually surprising because I don't know why, but when I think of this game, I do not think it would actually run well on Linux. But that's kind of cool, I guess. So yeah, just kind of experiment with things. If you do end up installing it, which I'd recommend because Linux normally runs a lot better than Windows. You can customize it a lot more like Windows. If you guys want to see, you can install the Plasma desktop here that I have. You can install it on just a normal Ubuntu installation. So if I search what the desktop is here, this is what it looks like before. And then you install the new desktop environment, which isn't really that difficult. You just install it, restart your computer, and then you can get it to look like this. So it's super customizable. You can basically make it look however you want. There's a ton more freedom with things, and also most of the applications on it are free. So for example, video editors here, I got Kdenlive. Not the best, but it's good enough. GIMP, that's kind of similar to Photoshop or PaintNet. It's a good photo editing program. And then obviously I have like Unity and Blender because I make games. But pretty much everything that you can get on here is going to be free. Unless it's, running through Steam or something, for example. But software itself, you normally don't have to pay for it. You can just download it, and it's really nice. So anyway, that's probably where I'm going to end off this video. In the little parts where I'm just talking, I might show some gameplay here of me playing some games. I actually just got Project Cars 2 running like really nicely inside of Linux, which I was surprised because it looks really great and the performance is actually pretty good. It's not as good as it is in Windows, which most games that you have to run through Proton or Wine normally don't run 100% like they do in Windows, so expect maybe like, depending on the game, you can get around 80%. Some games more, some games less. Anyway, if you guys enjoyed the video at all, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys later. Goodbye.
All right, so what's my take on his can you game on Linux in 2020? The only part that I'm going to really criticize, I guess, would be the very end where he talks about applications being free. Yes, price-wise, they are free. However, generically, what most Linux users should be telling you is if you like an application, you make money off an application, etc., you should pay in some way, shape, or form. Pay you on Patreon, donate. Time, money, doesn't matter. How you decide to pay for the software, totally up to you. Bug reports are a great thing. Use cases are a great thing. But I want people to understand that really the criticism isn't about the fact that he's saying that they're free. I could give two craps about whether or not they're free. Yes, there's great applications that I'm glad are free. As far as video editors, that's GameLive is probably the go-to usually, as far as like if you're looking for that iMovie-ish kind of video editor on Linux, as far as it's like, here's the one that all the users use generically. And you wouldn't be wrong on that. But there's a kind of a ton of, like, on Linux. DaVinci Resolve is on Linux. Lightworks is on Linux. Yes, they're both proprietary. They both have free options, whereas they don't cost anything. They're limited in functionality, though. OpenShot, Cinelira, Lives, Pativi. Take your pick. There's a ton of video editors. Flowblade, Shotcut. They're all there. Your mileage may vary depending on video editors. So I got no complaints on what he's talking about. So props to you, because you actually had some knowledge. B, I noticed that you installed the glorious egg roll version of Proton. That it means you are knowledgeable in your subject that you're talking about, and that is so valuable. So, were you using all the right community terminology and all the other stuff? No, but at the end of the day, you already know, they know what you mean. And if they know what you mean and they're still being douchebags about it, well, fuck them. So props to you, Havoc. You guys know what to do. Comment, rate, subscribe. Any Gala Patreon, all that stuff is down below. I'll catch you on the flip. Peace.